Hi, everybody, and welcome to Attendance Bias. I am your host, Brian Weinstein. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to remind everybody that you can support Attendance Bias by rating and reviewing it wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow Attendance Bias on social media, and most helpful, you could visit www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donate anything you can. Every cent goes a long way, I promise. Now, on to today's show. Welcome back to the Attendance Bias Summer 2026 Venue Preview Series. Last week, we got a peek at Lakeview Amphitheater in Syracuse, and now we are in the penultimate stop of the summer tour, where I have a feeling things will get weird. A 5-show stop, July 22nd, 24th, 25th, 27th, and 29th at Madison Square Garden in, where else? New York City. Years ago, when Phish would announce a summer tour, the band would release a pre-recorded video, sometimes with narration, other times without, and then the tour dates would show up in different places in each shot of the video. It's been a while. I think the Baker's Dozen was the last one, but it's been a while since Phish released a tour announcement video until this year. The band didn't announce their summer tour with a video. They announced their whole tour, and then they announced this micro-residency at MSG with a video formatted to look as if you were channel surfing at some point in the early 90s. The channels featured various New York City staples like the Weather Channel, hot dog vendors, of course, WPIX New York, and even a 90s-style Katy Tur reporting the news, all the while the studio version of Glide played in the background. The message that I took from it was pretty clear. Phish at Madison Square Garden is a normal part of the 90s New York City culture, just like skateboarders, the Times Square stock market ticker, or the Knicks and Rangers celebrating a win at the world's most famous arena. Clearly, the band is excited to make their way to 100 shows at MSG, and this summer provided an opportunity to make it happen just that much quicker. To preview this run, there's only one person I want to be my guest for this episode. Co-host of the Helping Friendly podcast, Osiris Media personality, and my good friend, Glionna. Like me, Megan lives close to the Garden. She's overly analytical, knowledgeable, and nerdy about Phish. She sees them a ton and romanticizes New York City while still being able to take off those rose-colored glasses when there's someone urinating on the subway, or worse. To me, it's no surprise that this episode is the longest of the preview series. Megan tells us about her history as a New Yorker. She and I debate what 100 shows at the same venue might mean to the fans and the band. And of course, she and I wax poetic about our favorite moments at MSG, those that involve Phish and those that don't. In short, we do cover a lot of ground since this episode previews the shows at what is probably the most important venue in modern Phish history. But I'm going too far. I don't want to spoil it. This introduction is already taking too long. Let's join Megan as we stop for a week in New York City to see Phish at MSG from July 22nd through 29th, 2026. Megan, welcome back to Attendance Bias. It's been a while. Glad to have you back. Good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back, Brian. It's so fun. I miss podcasting, and I'm so excited I get to do it again with you.
Thank you for being here and making the time. When I decided to do this venue preview series, even last year, I was trying to get your read on it just as, a sounding board, basically, because I was just first thinking, well, no one's been to see Phish at Forest Hills ever, obviously, and no one's ever been to Boulder, or at least to Folsom Field. And then when you brought it up, you said, I don't know, it might be good to do more than just those two venues. And I said, oh, okay, that's something to think about. And then before I knew it, I was having a 45-minute to an hour episode about every single venue on Phish's summer tour. And people liked it. So I thought, why not do it again? And then when they announced their tour and I looked at the venues, and then I saw toward the very end of the tour, oh, they're coming back to Madison Square Garden July 22nd through the 29th. They're playing 5 shows at MSG. And I thought two things. I said, well, how do I preview Madison Square Garden? Because Jesus Christ, every Phish fan ever knows about MSG, even if they've never been there. And then once I came up with an idea, I thought, well, Megan is the only person who could really talk through this.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. I'm honored to be associated with anything in New York City and especially the world's greatest arena.
That's it. That's it. That's kind of what we're going to do. Instead of just every single Phish bit at New York City, because that's impossible. That would take like an entire new podcast to take care of. Let's just take a look at what it's like to see Phish in New York City, especially in the summer, because that might be a new experience for a lot of fans.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what's exciting is that anytime Phish plays in New York, usually it's in the winter. And so having the opportunity to see them in the summer at MSG is different and always super fun.
It is. I can't wait for it. But before we get to it, for anyone who doesn't know, anyone who's listening, Megan, what is your history in New York and your relationship to the city? Just a little background.
Well, I always dreamed of living in New York City when I was a little girl. When I was 3 years old, I saw New York City on TV and I told my mom that I was going to live there one day. And it was always just my dream to live here. I grew up wanting to be an actor. And so coming to New York and acting here was always something that I was gunning for my whole childhood growing up. And I actually had some friends in college who were from the Northeast. And so I ended up coming up here to visit them and seeing some of the shows during the 97 and 98 New Year's Eve runs. But then I moved up here after college to pursue acting. And I've had a few excursions. I went to graduate school and I lived abroad for a little bit. But I've lived in New York for 21 years since I graduated college. So this is definitely where I have spent the most time. And it's the best place to live, and it's also the worst place to live. It's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, sometimes in the same exact moment. I remember one time my dad is from the Bronx, and so he hates New York because he feels like it's this like horrible place that you have to escape from. And he never understood why I wanted to live here, even though my artistic pursuits brought me here. He always just felt like it was such a hard place to live. At least it was for him growing up. And I remember I brought him to the US Open and I was so excited because he's a massive tennis fan. He grew up going to it and we had the best time there. It was that beautiful, 75-degree day in New York. Everything was just gorgeous. And afterwards we were walking in Central Park and I was like, Dad, I feel like I've really got you. Like today you have to admit how great New York is. And he turns around and there was a person just going to the bathroom, like taking a shit in Central Park, like a block, like not a block, excuse me, a few feet from us. And my dad was like, yeah, but then there's this.
It's
And I was
part
like,
and parcel.
Dad, that's New York, man. Like we have the best stuff and we also have the worst stuff. So like to me, I find it so inspiring and also so frustrating. And what the biggest standout about New York, though, is that you have, to me, the largest group of dreamers and people who get shit done here. Like, this is a place for people who have big dreams and who are ambitious and who work really hard. And that, to me, is unbelievably inspiring. And it's still a dream to live here, even when it's hard.
And it was a big trope in the 80s and early 90s, I would suggest that like New Yorkers are rude. New York is a shithole. I feel like that was, if you watch
Yeah.
movies from the 80s or late 70s all the way through the 80s, where it's like, oh, New York, it's always the graffiti, like whether it's Taxi Driver or The Warriors or Dog
Yeah.
Day
After
Afternoon, stuff
hours.
like After
Mhm.
Hours, right? It's like, oh, you can't go down that road. Like there's always steam rising up from the subway grates, right? Like
Yeah,
you got to be
totally.
scared. It's always dark. And yes, comma, but it's like New York is not a bad place and people are impolite. It's not that. It's just we got places to be. We got things to do. It's not a
Yeah.
personal offense. It's just we all got places we got to be.
No, and I think those are tropes. And I also think that's, it's kind of like, how Paris, everyone in France is rude too. It's like any big
Yes.
city, it's definitely a place that you have to jump into the energy of and be willing to kind of like ride along with the energy and go with the flow and definitely like make your own way. Nobody's going to like hold your hand in these places.
Right.
But I've never though found either of these cities to be incredibly rude or harsh. I think people are often very happy to help in New York. If you ask for help, I see people doing things all the time. I was here during, 9/11 and I know what New Yorkers can do and how New Yorkers can help each other and be a community. And if you live this close to people, you have to work together in so many ways. And I think that we don't often get that kind of press, but it really is a place that you do have to be really cooperative and flexible to live in, for sure.
Agreed. Same question, but through a different lens. What makes New York City unique as a place to see Phish, in your opinion?
Well, I grew up in the Midwest. And so when I would go to see concerts, Phish shows, or the Grateful Dead, it was more about driving to like a venue in the middle of nowhere and like setting up camp. Or in the rare occurrences that you were in a city, you were kind of on the outskirts, and you were never really participating in the city to me. But when you see a show at MSG, you're literally in the middle of one of the biggest, most vibrant cities in the world. And I love that. I think that's the best about the opportunity it presents for people from out of town to come to New York. You really get to take advantage of the city, being able to walk around, sit in the park, eat our food, go to the museums. And in the summer, to me, this is in, full effect. You've got rooftop hangs, you've got pre-show. I think there's something really special about when a kind of traveling circus, like a jam band show, sets up inside, this urban environment. In New York, you're really forced to integrate. It's one of the things that's kind of like sad about seeing Phish in New York City is that there's not like a huge lot, right? There's not that big parking lot. There's not that magic, huge shakedown street where you're going to eat your grilled cheese and you're going to, buy a million cool things. But it's sort of embedded in this weird way where like you'll turn a corner and then you'll kind of like catch someone's eye who is like there for the show for whatever reason. And to me, that almost makes it seem more special because you're kind of having that moment of micro love of like connection with someone, but you're in this larger, universe that's so rich. And I love that. I think also because MSG's become a home court. It's become a residency for
100%.
Phish.
Yeah.
This is our home court, and it's a meaningful venue for the band, which I know we're going to talk about. And also the people who work at Madison Square Garden, they love Phish fans. I mean, shout out to those people. They are the best staff of any venue ever. They're so kind. They're so fun. They are so generous, and they are always helping people make it be an amazing experience. I took my daughter to her first show at Madison Square Garden, and we were talking to one of the women that works there, and she found out I was a Phish fan, and she was like, "Oh, you're a Phish fan? Hold on, I love all the people." And she gave us popcorn for free, and she was like, "This is for you. You are the best fans." Like, it was just great. And I think there's just a special kind of like energy there. This sounds kind of a little weird, but I think it's actually true. I don't know if you've ever been to Sedona in Arizona, but it's like
When
an
I was like
energy
11
vortex.
or 12, like I was really young, and all I remember was like taking the pink Jeep tour and
Yeah.
like seeing all the turquoise jewelry that was really cheap. That's all I remember from Sedona.
Yeah, it's an energy vortex. So it's this place where there's like this special energy that's like coming from the earth. It has this feeling of like renewal and rebirth. And for me, whenever I am in Madison Square Garden on 12:30, I try to be on the floor. It didn't happen this year, but it's okay. There's a spot like right under the scoreboard, and it's dead center in like the middle of the floor. And when I'm there and Phish is playing, it really feels like an energy vortex. It feels like I'm in the center of the universe. There's this really round room. This band is playing. The floors are bouncing around me. There's just this energy that feels different from any other venue that Phish plays at. And so for me, that's something that I don't get anywhere else.
So speaking of the circus coming to town, and even though there's no lot, right? There's no place. I mean, there's plenty of places to pregame. I didn't mean it like that, but there's no like centralized area for fans to gather before a show in Madison Square Garden. Let's say you have friends coming in for these 5 nights, and they have to get there a day early and they have to stay a day late. What do you recommend? Where do you take your friends?
I would definitely tell anyone to explore. Like, probably get out of Manhattan and take the subway to a neighborhood where I live in Fort Greene, or I would really recommend that Carroll Gardens is an incredible neighborhood in Brooklyn. You've got Italian bakeries, Italian sandwich shops, like really great affordable coffee made by people who made coffee before it was trendy. Amazing boutique shopping, people watching. Go to one of these neighborhoods where people live and see what it's like. Go to where you live in Forest Hills and Queens. Go to Chinatown, get incredible food. Go to the Indian section on 6th Street in downtown Manhattan. Like, check out a neighborhood and walk around. It's a walking city. That's one thing that's great about New York. And if the weather's great in the summer, like, oh, you could just walk forever and stumble into places. That to me is kind of the magic of New York City, is just walking around and finding a great little place to have a drink or, a little bit of like olives and cheese. Like it's just somewhere you can kind of wander around and walk into magic. And I would also recommend the Whitney, which is a very specific recommendation, but that's my favorite art museum in New York. It has an incredible collection, and also it has these beautiful terraces that you can overlook downtown Manhattan and the water, and it's right on the High Line, which is just an absolutely amazing, where they took the old elevated platforms and turned it into a park, and it's stunning, and you can kind of look over the river, and it's a really special spot. So that's a specific recommendation, but I love that museum, and I go there all the time.
I would double down on your recommendation to get out of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Manhattan has everything, period, except space. And there are
Yeah.
places, in the surrounding boroughs. Maybe your dad wouldn't want to go to the Bronx, but he had a good time at the US Open in Queens.
Yeah.
Like going to Flushing, which is right next to Forest Hills. It's like the real Chinatown of New York City. You can have the best
Yeah.
Chinese food of your life, arguably. So I would definitely support that and double down, like I said, on that recommendation. And of course, any museum that catches your interest, the Museum of the Moving Image, if you're into movies and film, is in Astoria. There are places everywhere, forgive me, except maybe Staten Island, that you could go find something fun to do and get back in time for the show.
Absolutely. And you can ride the ferry to Staten Island, which is pretty cool. And Governor's Island is super awesome too. And there are ferries to that too. And that's a really cool place with like an amazing spa, outdoor spa there. And they have really fun, like they'll often have jazz playing on the greens there. And it's just, there's so many things to do in New York. And a lot of them you can do without spending a ton of money, just by kind of walking around and seeing where the day takes you.
Well, let's take a look at Madison Square Garden itself. So the Madison Square Garden we are discussing has been around just since 1968. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into the past, not too deep, because I'm sure there's somewhere an entire podcast series about the history of MSG. But I once wrote a history of Madison Square Garden for the Surrender to the Flow magazine. So I just want to touch on the tippy top of what led us to 34th Street and 6th Avenue. So the very idea of Madison Square Garden as an events venue, it has a very long and complicated history. Like the big room that we know between 31st and 34th Street and 7th and 8th Avenue is the fourth building actually to be named Madison Square Garden. The original was built in 1879. It's like well over 100 years ago, just north of Madison Square. For those of you unfamiliar, that's like around 23rd or 25th Street and Madison Avenue, so a little bit south and east of what you know as MSG. And this was all the way back when Tammany Hall controlled New York City. So even though it was designed for large gatherings, records say that the building oddly had no roof. So its primary tenant was Phineas T. Barnum of Barnum and Bailey Circus. And they performed year round, even in the winter. So he had to erect sort of like a shantytown temporary roof. And the building closed in 1890, just after 11 years, because, well, it was unusable for half the year. People couldn't walk in in the winter in New York City without a roof. So they renamed a new building, Madison Square Garden. It opened in 1890. And big name investors like P.T. Barnum, he did not want to give up his performance area, but also Andrew Carnegie, the titans of industry, J.P. Morgan, William Astor. It was on 23rd Street and Madison, 32 stories high. It's an enormous building for its time. It seated 8,000 people, huge numbers for the time, but that closed in 1925. So we're getting slowly closer to where we are now. So a new MSG was constructed almost immediately, much farther uptown. I have problems even imagining this. It was located on 8th Avenue, between 49th and 50th Street. So this is not too far from where like Radio City is, for example. Not that close, but not too far. Old-time New Yorkers, like my 77-year-old Uncle Stevie, referred to this building as the Old Garden. So if you ever hear anyone who's probably a little bit gray around the edges of their temples and they say the Old Garden, they're not talking about Madison Square Garden as we know it. They're talking about 49th and 50th. So according to him, this is a primary source, the Old Garden had much more comfortable seats compared to other areas or ballparks. That's his opinion. Although it did have many obstructed views, but it was much more like our current Madison Square Garden than anyone that came before it. But that one was demolished in 1968. And finally, The Madison Square Garden that we all know and love, or at least the one we know, I know not everyone loves it, was opened that same year in February 1968 after the controversial decision, and you'll hear New Yorkers talk about this all over the place, after the decision was made to knock down and renovate Penn Station, the existing Penn Station, not the one we know now, where we get out of this train and we're like, there's like a 10-foot ceiling. And if you bend the wrong way, you might bump your head. It still is obviously in Midtown Manhattan. When did you move, Megan, to New York City?
2000.
Okay, so you'll remember this.
Yeah.
This old version of the new MSG.
Yeah.
It is with like the indoor concourse, the circular that was in the round, right? With purple and turquoise seats, very 90s. Totally chill security, in my memory. Cigarette smoke everywhere. And the 200s level offered a mostly unobstructed view of the action. You could literally have a seat anywhere, except like my first Phish show. If you were all the way upstairs behind the stage, maybe you wouldn't have the best view. But virtually anywhere else offered a great view and sound. It was literally a round room with nothing to block your view. But that garden is gone. Even though it's the same building, it doesn't exist anymore because in 2011, MSG owner, and I would describe him as moderately talented blues harmonica player. He does have his own band called JD and the Straight Shots. And
I didn't know that.
I've seen them play live at Bonnaroo. So I could heckle him after his set. That's a true story from 2006. He began $1 billion bottom to top renovation that gave MSG like a huge facelift. He changed all the seats to black coloring, a much bigger jumbotron, new luxury suites, widened concourses with definitely more food and drink options. He was trying to pretty much bring the new old MSG into the 2000s, basically, because it was getting a little bit dated compared to, I don't know, since the early 90s trend of building new stadiums for teams, right? And so, of course, there's the Chase Bridge. I don't know if it's still called that, but to me, that's Icarus flying a little too close to the sun. You know, it was, let's put everything in, and that last thing just fucked it all up. But that's my own, axe to grind. So while
people love the Chase Bridge, though. People love the Chase Bridge. Yeah.
But the people behind it,
I know it's terrible for people.
It's terrible. And it's not even just Phish. Like going to a Rangers game, if you get those same seats, like in the 200s past, I don't know, row 10, let's say, you're watching the game on TV.
I know. It's so brutal. And the sound is bad back there, too.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
I will say the modern MSG is much more comfortable. It's generally aesthetically pleasing, but those comforts came at the cost of clear sightlines and the acoustics that, in my opinion, the Garden was previously known for. So, Megan, having grown up in the Midwest, you mentioned a little earlier, did Madison Square Garden mean anything to you, that phrase? Because they like to position themselves as, quote, the world's most famous arena. Is that true outside New York City, in your opinion?
Probably. I don't have a lot of memories of the venue when I was a kid. I'm sure I had seen it on TV or in movies or something, but I think that's different if you're a sports fan. I think that if you're a sports fan, you definitely know what MSG is, right? I would say that no matter where you live. I know kind of historically it's had some really questionable events there, like a long time ago.
A Nazi rally, you mean?
Yeah, like a Nazi rally. Yeah. And, we had another sort of Nazi rally there not that long ago, actually. I knew about that, but I didn't know a lot about the venue outside of that. So sports, I think, is probably the way that a lot of people know about it. Maybe it's different now. I don't know.
Maybe. Well, do you have any early memories of MSG? Because you said at 3 years old, you knew you wanted to come to New York City. When you think, and you saw it on TV, the city, I mean, and you think of the monuments of New York City, the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, all the generic postcard stuff. Did MSG ever figure into that pastiche?
Not really. It loomed very large once I started seeing Phish. Once I became a Phish fan, I really wanted to see them at MSG because they played when I first got super into Phish in 1994. And so they played their first year, show at MSG on 12/30/94, obviously. And that next New Year's Eve, 12/31/95, was my freshman year of college. And my boyfriend at the time was from Connecticut. And he asked me to go back and see the show, the New Year's Eve run with him. And I didn't. I actually went back to see some friends in Michigan. And so I didn't get to go to 12/31/95, which is devastating. But I did go up. And then I saw the New Year's Eve run in 96, but that wasn't at MSG. It was in Boston. And then so I did go up in 97 and 98 for the New Year's Eve runs. And so that was the first time I went up to MSG to see Phish. That was the first time I saw anything at MSG. And I was over the moon. I mean, it was wild experience. I'm not going to lie, I was 19. I was very into partying. I'm kind of impressed we made it into these shows, actually, because we were really having a good time. But I have memories about how easy it was to move around. The concourse, in the indoor concourses on each level were amazing because you could literally dance around the entire venue. You're right, security, I felt, never cared where anybody was. And I have a very distinct memory of being there on 12/30/97 and hearing Sneak and Sally drop and I was on the 100 level concourse and my friends and I were just like going insane and just dancing around. And like, I think that concourse was really, really cool. And if you're someone who likes to dance at a Phish show, they didn't really care if you were on that dancing. And so all of us would be packed into it. You could kind of easily meet up with your friends no matter where your tickets were. I remember my friends and I would always meet up at the 420 section during set break, you know? So it was just a really, it had that kind of like 90s vibe. I also have this like amazing memory of the escalators there where I had this very dramatic breakup with a boyfriend and I saw him. I hadn't seen him in a while, and I saw him in 98. It was the last time I ever saw him, actually, and it was on the escalator, and it was one of those like passing each other on the escalator moments, and it was really emotional. And I just remember, like, I sort of love that happened at Madison Square Garden because it's a place that's very special to me, and also our relationship was really influential in my life. So it was just very cool that I feel like it's kind of like a rom-com moment in Madison Square Garden.
100%. And it's so crazy you said that. My only time that I've ever seen my ex-wife since our divorce wasn't at MSG, but it was at Mohegan Sun in 2019, and it was passing on escalators. She was going up, I was going down. And I was in such a great mood. Like, I was with my friend Michelle. We had just checked into the room, and like, you know, whether you change, I don't remember, but like you freshen up a little bit after a car ride and whatever. You check into your room, you put your bags down. And Mohegan Sun, because everyone is there only for the shows, like in that like closed bubble, like no one has to go anywhere. No one has to drive. Everyone's walking around with open drinks, you know? And I was in such a good mood, and it's so bright. And obviously they pump oxygen because it's a casino. So I was in such a great mood, and I was going down an escalator and I saw her coming up, and I was so psyched to be there for two Phish concerts. She looked up and she went, "Brian?" I went, "Have a great show." And I just gave her a high five as we passed each other. And that was the last time I've seen her. It's the only time I've seen her.
Amazing. That's a wild. Yeah, it's just one of those kind of, it's a movie moment for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite non-Phish memories of being at Madison Square Garden? You've been in New York City, it sounds like, for about 25 years.
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah, I do. I mean, I think most of the time I go to MSG, it is for Phish.
Right, same.
But yeah, I have had two really special experiences. And one is I took my daughter to her first concert at MSG. We went and saw Harry Styles. It was amazing, by the way. And that was when she loved it because she got to see me in my element. Like, I knew which doors to go in. I knew how to, get into the merch line without getting crushed. I knew where to get like really great food. And like, she was very impressed by that. It was fun. And just seeing her kind of like, she was 11, I think at the time, just full of braces and like dancing at my favorite venue, it was really special. And then actually through a Phish connection, I got an incredible experience for my daughters. We are all three of us Olivia Rodrigo fans, and she was playing at MSG and I couldn't get tickets and we were really upset about it. And I ended up, there is an amazing woman who I knew from HF Pod. She listened to the show and we'd always like connected just online and stuff. And I think I had mentioned something online about trying to get the tickets, and she reached out to me and said that her husband had a box at MSG, and last minute they might have some spots. And so she was like, it's going to be last minute. Like, you're not going to know basically until like an hour before showtime because it just depends if people show up. And so I was like, okay. So I got the girls and I was like, we're going to get ready for the concert. We're going to like manifest this is happening. We took the train and we were like on the subway getting up to MSG, not knowing if we were going to get in or not. And then I get a text from her and it's like, you're in, your names are there. And we were like, oh my God. And then they got to go into this incredible box, which I hadn't been to a box at MSG before, and food everywhere and candy and soda. And then we were actually stood, the box was pretty crowded and everybody was pretty tight and you couldn't really move. And I was like, girls, I know where to go. And we went up to the Chase Bridge and we just threw down, and it was so awesome. And just to see my daughters like screaming these like girl power anthems and like on the Chase Bridge overlooking, Olivia Rodrigo floating around on a moon. It was amazing. And it was just a cool moment because I got to do that because of Phish, basically because of the people that I know through the community.
Those are great stories. I don't have kids, but like I have childhood memories of going to MSG, right? Like going to Knicks and Rangers games and stuff like that back when you could do it, when it was affordable. Like
Yeah,
going to the
exactly.
Rangers this year issued an apology to their fans for their record before the All-Star break even. They were like, sorry that we haven't been delivering the product, you deserve. And it's like, we're still going to charge you $175 for shitty seats. It's like, what's the point?
It's outrageous. I really hate this about concerts and about sports events in that it really has become something you can only do if you have a lot of money. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's so incredibly messed up. Like my kids don't see like 1/10 of the amount of music that I saw as a kid because it's so expensive. Like my first Phish show was $18 and like 50 cents or something, where now if my kids, want to go see a concert, it's like literally like 250.
And
It's
it's
so
not even
messed up.
accounting for inflation. It's like you
No,
could get a 20 for babysitting in whatever
exactly.
year it was that it was
Yes.
1850. Like my first show it was 27.50. It was the New Year's run in 97. So it was like an extra $2 because it was the New Year's run at MSG. And it's like I could scrape together $27.50 in 1997 when I was 15. Like
Yeah.
it's not even just inflation calculator, it's proportionally out of whack.
It's completely messed up. And I feel bad because, like, my daughter is a huge Zach Bryan fan. I love Zach Bryan. I want to take her to the show, but I also don't want to spend $750 to get us there to, eat the food at the venue, to eat these, like, drink these super expensive drinks, to buy the merch. Like, it's like, who can afford to do that regularly? Like, it's just pricing people out. And I don't think people should have to spend close to $1,000 to have an experience seeing music. It's really messed up.
Agreed. Before we get into Phish's history at the Garden, I know we've touched on it, we've scraped the surface of it about the venue. Any tips and tricks for any first timers, anyone who looked at it, the schedule, the summer tour, and said, you know what? I've never been to MSG. I've been to New York City, but I've never been to that venue and I want to see Phish. What would you tell them? Tips and tricks.
I mean, I think there's definitely ways to be smarter when you're waiting in line there. All the front doors open in that venue, so not just the ones on the side. So I would definitely use alternative entrances at MSG. I think also the water filling situation sucks there. It's embarrassing. I don't know why they don't fix it, but I always bring a Nalgene when I go to MSG, even though it sucks because the waters there are just so expensive. But they don't have like traditional water fillers everywhere. And I think that speaks to when it was renovated was a while ago, but they really should have done that. They really should put those in. So sometimes you will be standing behind an actual water fountain, not like
Yeah,
a water filling and filling it up and it's dripping all over the ground and the lines are long for that. So I always try to fill my water up. They start playing reggae. I'm gonna go hit the water fountain. So those
specifically
are,
Rogue, yeah.
yeah, those are kind of like my tips for sure is that you got to hit the water at like, different times because the lines get so long there because they don't have the proper water filling stations. Yeah, and I really do think that the great thing about pre-gaming before MSG is that there's so many places close by and
That
they're
was
all
going to be my
fun.
tip. Like don't
Yeah.
spend too much time figuring out where you're going to pregame. Every bar in Midtown is exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly. And like American Beauty's gone, which was kind of like the staple
Yeah.
pre-game, jam band bar. That's closed, sadly. And that was super fun. But, I would say all of them near MSG, a lot of them have the Vibrate, like Mustang Harry's or Mustang Sally's. Like those are all great places. And there's lots of places that have rooftop bars that I like to go to around MSG, and those are really fun, especially in the summer.
Hi, everybody. Brian here to welcome you to the set break of today's episode of Attendance Bias. First, thank you for listening. And second, just a quick reminder to tell you that even though Attendance Bias comes to you for free, it does take a lot of work and it does take quite a bit of money to keep the lights on here at production. So I just wanted to ask a small favor if you could support the podcast in any number of the following ways. If you could leave a review or a rating of it on whichever podcast app you use. If you could spread the word, telling a friend or someone you think may be interested in it about it. Or probably the most concrete way is to go to www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donate however much you can financially to help with the continuing costs of Attendance Bias. So thank you again so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the second half of today's episode. So at this point of every preview episode, I usually list the shows that Phish has previously played at that venue, the one being covered. We don't have 100 hours, so we don't have 100 hours. So let's just assume that anyone listening to this knows that we're at the tail end of Phish playing 100 shows at Madison Square Garden in totality in their career. As you mentioned, their first show at the venue was December 30th, 94. And they're making a big deal out of this. They're just not announcing the shows and letting the fans figure it out for themselves. For the first time in years, they released an announcement video about this specific run within the summer tour. So obviously,
video too.
Yeah, it's amazing. I watched it and it was like the Zapruder film for me and my friends. We were like pausing every other second and like, oh, do you see this? Do you see that? Like Easter eggs galore.
Yeah.
And so these 5 shows on the 2026 summer tour will be numbers 92 through 96. Obviously, deliberately setting up the 100th show to be on New Year's Eve, 2026. Before we get to our highlights from Phish at MSG, though, I'm curious about your thoughts, and I've been asking this pretty much anyone who is into Phish to get your take on a few things about 100 shows. What does it mean? Does it mean anything? And so on. Like Phish fans, myself included, were so huge, like into keeping statistics, counting shows, recognizing patterns, acknowledging milestones, etc. Like Phish is obviously making a big deal of their last few shows at MSG leading up to 100. Considering it all, in your opinion only, Megan, do you think it means anything to play the same venue 100 times? They didn't even play Nectar's 100 times.
Absolutely. And I think over the past 5 years, we really see the band, Trey especially, thinking a lot about their legacy
100%.
and their place in American rock and roll history. And, they had this bid for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I am furious that they weren't inducted, and I'm not going to get over that. It's absolutely embarrassing that they don't have an understanding of Phish's importance in this.
Right. Embarrassing for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes, it's embarrassing for them that they don't understand. We received the most fan votes of all time. I don't understand what either their metrics are severely outdated or they just don't have a grasp of what Phish has done. And I think we've been seeing Trey and Paige and Mike really doing a lot of press, speaking more openly about the band to the mainstream media. We are still getting a lot of the same worn out tropes. The articles are still like, you might think Phish is a dumb, weird drug band, but turns out these guys are really smart and they work really hard and their fan base is amazing. And now I'm a huge fan because their music is awesome. That is literally every single article written about
it's
Phish.
Like hippies dripping with patchouli dressed in tie-dye, swirling with white boy dreadlocks. And it's like, it's not 1996 anymore, buddy.
Yeah. And it's also like that story has been told so many times. Like, why do we need to tell it again? And I think there's so many more interesting stories about this band. But anyway, I also think the band has been doing a lot of things to think about their relationship with the fans and what the history has meant. We're getting these fan service shows like Gamehenge at New Year's Eve, the revival of their festival at Mondegreen, the Sphere residencies. This is a band that's starting to think about like what they'll leave behind and what their mark will be. And in 2023, they surpassed Elton John to have the second most performances at MSG, and they're still trailing Billy Joel at 150. If you think about who those two artists are in terms of their contribution to the American songbook and their massive popularity, Phish sitting in between them is a big deal. And playing the world's most famous arena more times than Elton John and other humongous acts like the Grateful Dead, Bruce Springsteen, Madonna, The Who, that means something. I guess it's not enough for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but to me, it really speaks to their incredible contribution to American music. Also, I think this idea that everyone knows that Phish plays New Year's Eve at the world's most famous arena every year, I think that really legitimizes them in the eyes of the world as well. And I think these facts like residencies and playing at these big venues is especially important for Phish because they don't have record sales and radio play, whatever that means now. But yeah, and for me, it means a lot. This is my hometown. It's my favorite band in my favorite venue. I've seen a third of my Phish shows at Madison Square Garden, and it's super meaningful to me. I'm going to hit my 100th show this year, which is not a big deal in Phish world, but it's a big deal to me. And
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and it's going to be at Madison Square Garden. So that's exciting.
I agree with pretty much everything you said, and I've stated this opinion previously on other episodes. I think the reason that they are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because I love the axe you have to grind against that. I think it's because for virtually all of their career, they said, look at what we're doing. Look at what we're accomplishing. 80,000 people to the southern tip of Florida without a word of press. We don't need you. We don't need you guys. Rolling Stone, Spin magazine at the time, like whatever other music outlet. And now we do need you, because it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and those people are the movers and shakers. So now we have
my
to
God,
kinda...
we're talking about rock and roll, okay?
I know, but
it's like so
a
frustrating to me. It's like we're not talking about, an industry that is supposed to support insiders. Like, we're talking about fucking rock and roll. Like, we are talking about like sticking it to the man, being outside of the, mainstream, doing it our own way. Like, that's what drives me insane is I'm like, you are corporatizing something and then penalizing the people that are anti-corporate within, rock and roll. Like, anyway, yes,
That's
I
just
know
the
we
way
agree.
it is.
Exactly. It's so frustrating to me.
What's your opinion about Phish at MSG in the summer? We've kind of touched on this already. Better or worse compared to the holiday season when they play the 28th through 31st? Another way, does the lack of a holiday season deflate the experience at all for you? Or is it a fun novelty to see Phish in the summer at Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, I gotta say, I think it's better. I mean,
I agree.
there's just no coats, more time outside, more people milling around. It's easier to enjoy the city. You're not going to have like shitty weather usually, unless it's just gonna be really hot. More after parties, more vibey. To me, it's just going to be really special. And I think also there's a lot of tourists in New York City over the New Year's Eve time, and I think it just becomes more crowded. In the summer, it's kind of more laid back. A lot of people who live in New York actually leave in the summer.
Yes.
So there is kind of a more spacious breathiness to the city.
Yeah. Easier to get a cab, especially in Midtown.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's not as many... All the tourists who are on summer vacation in New York City, number one, they're like, oh, it smells like piss here? Okay. But also, they're
it's a
not...
downfall for sure.
Right. They're not in Midtown. Right there on the Upper West Side. They're by some of the museums that you might, well, maybe not the Whitney, but like the Met or the Guggenheim. Like, they're uptown a little bit. They're in Central Park. They're all the way downtown. Like, where we're going to be is not as crowded with, it may be business people, but it's not as crowded with tourists as it would be during the holiday season, like in Bryant Park, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I agree. I think everything about Phish in New York City during the summer is better than the holiday run. Number one would be industrial strength air conditioning in Madison Square Garden. Seeing a show in shorts, can't beat it.
I know. And, you're not outside. I think, one thing that's like so hard in the summer sometimes, and, I'm still working out my trauma from the last day of Mondegreen, but like being in really, really like high humidity, high heat outdoor venues where there's like storms and delays. And it's really nice to just know like you're going to be great at MSG. You're going to be totally fine.
So now for the super duper fun part, let's speak about our highlights, our Phish highlights at MSG. Like, I don't want to speak for anyone else regarding standout shows or like highlights for MSG, because there's a literal 1 in 100 chance now, or getting close to it, that any show I mention is going to be someone else's favorite show ever. So I don't want to leave anything out for anyone else. Let's make this personal. I have my list. When I wrote up my notes, I came up with about 10 highlights, whether it's single songs or entire shows, of Phish at MSG. Megan, what are some of your favorite moments, shows, sets, however you want to put it, experiences that aren't even music related? What are some of your favorite memories or jams from Phish at MSG?
Yeah, I was really thinking about this from my like nerdy HF pod lens. So I'm going to go that way a little bit. I mean, everyone knows about 12/30/97. Everyone knows about 12/31/95, two of the greatest top 5 Phish shows of all time. Some people would even put them, up by 1, 2, 3. And a show I always stand for is 12/30/19. It's one of our best modern press play, no skips Phish shows with one of my favorite jams of all time. And the
Tweezer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely like everybody who knows me as a podcaster knows that that's kind of my like hill I die on. I think that show too is perfectly constructed. It has everything you want in terms of like banter, historical lookbacks, incredible jams, perfect set listing, some rarities, just an absolute gem of a show. But I wanted to talk about some other shows that I think we, I wouldn't say they're underrated, but maybe just like not talked about as much. I did the last draft we did on HF Pod last year. It was really fun. We had Ryan Storm and Justin Bruce on with me and Brian, and we did a kind of holiday New Year's Eve run draft. And it got me listening to a bunch of shows I hadn't listened to in a long time. And I would say the 28th and the 29th from 1998 are really, really strong shows. And I would recommend people go check them out. You have this like in the 28th of 12/28/98. It's kind of hard to say. It's a lot of like eights. The first set is a great stash, this beautiful taste. And then you have this acoustic set within a set with Sleep, Albuquerque, and Driver. Beautiful stuff. I love set 2 opens with this Carini, which goes into this unbelievable Wolfman's Brother, and that's on Live Bait Volume 13.
It's like 50 minutes of music, unbroken music.
mean, it's
it's amazing.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. And then you've got Quinn into Bowie closing out the set. I mean, it's just unbelievable. 1229.
Can I pause you before you get to 1229? I just want to thank you for bringing up 1228.98. That was, so my first show was 1229.97, right? I've probably in every conversation you and I have ever had, I've probably brought it up at some point. But since I didn't have a car and I was so young at the time, I had to wait a whole year basically until 1228.98 to see Phish again. So
that's amazing.
That show was my second show and I was blown away. Like I knew all the songs. That whole year I was like a samurai training to see my next Phish show, like soaking in everything I could, reading everything I could, finding out, like discovering, I don't know if it was RMP or Phish.net yet at the time, or the Phish Bowl on AOL.
Yeah.
And I was learning everything I could. So when I think they opened 1228.98 with Axela. So when I was there and that crazy, powerful opening of that show, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like now I am in. And then that crazy improv in the second set that you just mentioned, Carini into Wolfman's. I was like, okay, this is my favorite band for the rest of my life. Okay.
That was it. Oh
I
my
mean,
God, that's
it already
amazing.
happened. It already happened. But when I was there to see it, and I was much more mature as a fan, like I knew
Yeah.
more what I was talking about. I knew the songs when they were starting to be played, and I could name them. I was like, all right, this is now I'm in love. Before I had a nice like a crush on them. Now I'm in love.
That is amazing. I didn't know if I remembered that you were at that show. That's amazing.
But
I love
go
that.
on to 1229. Go on to the next night.
Yeah, well, one thing I wanted to say too is that there's something so beautiful about that time period in the 90s when you would have to wait so long to see the band. Like, I remember between the first show I saw of Grateful Dead, I saw them in the summer of 93, and then I saw them again that fall. And it was like 4 or 5 months of just total anticipation. It's like it was so exciting to wait. And it's like you still wait now, but it's different because you can hear the shows and you can live stream them, and it's just on the internet. Like it's so different. Like
And
we were
rumors
really
on
like,
social media. So it's like it takes a little
yeah.
bit of the surprise away, in a way.
Yeah, and I just feel like it was such a cool thing to just wait for so long. I saw Phish for the first time in fall of '94, and then the next time I saw them was the next summer of '95, and so much time had passed, and I, like you, had spent so much time like studying and learning the music, and yeah, it's just a really cool thing that I kind of miss that you have that you don't have that now.
12/29/98, I remember the next night is one of my favorite shows ever.
Oh my
Ever.
God, it's a
Like I went
perfect
to
show.
the head shop that used to sell tapes, and they had a soundboard quality, and it's available. It's easily available now. This is like one of the first, I guess I could say, real time soundboards. Like it used to be, all the soundboards I would get would be from like 91 or 92, like early 90s shows. But this was the first like concurrent soundboard that I had for a really long time. Like, oh, I just went to this show like 2 months ago, and now I have a soundboard quality recording of it.
Yeah,
This is mind blown. So it kind of became a default favorite show just because
yeah.
it never left my car from like February 99 until, we went over from forsaking physical media.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this show's amazing. I was at this show too. I did this run starting on the 29th. And I think that the first set, you have like rock and roll, punch you, and then they close the set with an a cappella Freebird. And then set two has this absolutely massive 17-minute 2001.
Best
It was
one.
it was an honorable mention on my Mount Rushmore. It
Yeah.
was really close, but it's like this ambient dreamscape is absolutely perfect. And then you also have a great You Enjoy Myself. And then the band Encore Divided Skies, first time encore in 10 years. And it's got, to me, it's that perfect combination of like the funk 97 and the millennial 99, that crossover 98 with like the ambient funk you get. It's just, I love some of that 98 sound. And I think this is kind of like a perfect kind of encapsulation of that. And the second set is just like nonstop perfection. So good.
Anything else after that 98? Because I have a list too, but
Yeah,
anything else after
yeah,
that
I have a
98? I want to hear
few.
from you.
I just want to remind people that I think people know a lot about the show, but if you haven't listened to it in a while, put on 12/30 2018. It is like just absolutely perfect. One of my favorite shows I've ever attended. Incredible set list. Glide 2 in the middle of Mike's
Oh,
Groove. I
what a
mean, what? I
sweet
thought I was
spot.
gonna
Yeah.
cry.
It's time. It's time. It's time. It's
A Bliss acoustic debut. It was like I just remember being like, oh my God, this is incredible. You know, just Tube back in a Weekapaw groove, Tube, like a perfect second set. It just absolutely perfect with this cool amber mercury. Everything's right. Plasma light waiting, split open a melt. And then they have the super fun encore with like the face plant into rock cavern. Just absolutely incredible show. And then I have two modern shows that I want to recommend that were really, really recent. But I think the 7/28 2023 from MSG, the last summer residency they did, that first night is unreal. That I was on the floor and I remember the first set, everybody was like jaw on the ground after that. Evening song opener, which is like Chef's Kiss, and then a huge, huge wave of hope in slot 2. Like unbelievable. Like one of the best Wave of Hopes ever. It was an honorable mention in my Mount Rushmore series we did on HF Pod. And then it's followed by like a jammed out cities. I mean, the whole show is so great, but the way that show opens is like Phish, just like open every show like this, please. It's like perfect. Were you at that show?
Yeah, I went to all 7 of those
Yeah.
shows.
Oh my God, that one just like blows my mind.
That was in my quest to hear Tila live. because
Oh
I had seen
yeah.
over 100 shows by that point, and Tila just always evaded me. Everyone has theirs, whatever it may
Yeah.
be. And I'm like, well, it's just a percentage number. Like if I go to all 7 shows,
I'm
I
bound to get
can't miss it.
it.
And they didn't play it. So
That's
it wasn't until
crazy.
the Gamehenge show in New Year's 2023 where it didn't even occur to me, because once they started that Harpua and, went into actual Gamehenge, I thought they weren't going to do it. I thought they were going to play Ha 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 after
Instead,
like
yeah.
opening. I thought they were
Oh,
going to
no
fake us
way.
out because I'm so bitter and I'm so
Yeah.
like cynical.
Jaded.
And yeah, and once they actually started playing, the narration and the Man Who Stepped Into Yesterday riff, like once it really dawned on me, and I started crying and I put my hands up to my mouth, and I felt hands on my shoulders and everyone was hugging, in my
Oh.
row and all that. And then I got a text from my buddy Greg, and we're in a group text with the other friends, and he said Brian's finally gonna get his Tila.
Oh, that's
And it's
amazing.
like the
I
whole
love
world around me
that.
melted. It was the best.
That's the best. That's the kind of stuff. Those are the best Fish moments when you get what you're chasing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
better get some of that this summer. Yeah.
What are you
Well, the
chasing?
lot I really, really, really want to hear Kung and Catapult. So I want some. I mean, they're
With the
playing
spoken
so.
words.
Yeah, and they're playing so dark and weird right now. Like I think it would be a good time to kind of like get a little weird. I've never heard either of those songs, but yeah. So the last one I want to talk about, and then I want to hear your list,
Mhm.
is 12/29/24. That show is it's amazing. I love the first set. You've got this really cool MoMA dance that has that extended intro that kind of flirts with Black Eyed Katy. You can kind of hear
Yes.
the predecessor in it. I
Yeah.
remember being like, "Oh, that's cool." I remember watching Trey just like dance and look at Mike because Mike was doing really cool stuff. And you've got like a mini jam and Caspian and Runaway Jim in the first set, and then that Yam has that like jam that got cut kind of short and went right back and segued into Ghost. It was so cool. But the second set, perfect set list and perfect killer jams and a great encore but this Ruby Waves is one of my favorite
Right.
modern jams. It was the longest jam Phish has ever played at MSG, surpassed the 12:39 19 tweezer, and it's just an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous jam. It was the longest jam I've ever seen played live outside of like a secret set. And then you've got the Bold as Love encore. Like, come on, that's so mic drop. I love
Yeah,
that.
that's the best. I mean, we really do in the 2020s, right? 2020 itself excluded for obvious reasons, but in the 2020s, we really do have an embarrassment of riches of Phish jams at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, some really good stuff. Yeah.
So I'll make my list a little bit shorter because I just sped typed pretty much. My first show, 12/29/97. Anyone listening to Attendance Bias, you've heard it all anyway. I wrote the 1998 New Year's Eve run as a whole because those 2 shows you mentioned, I was at both of them and the next one, but I didn't get tickets for New Year's Eve. So I went to the first 3, but missed the New Year's run. I'm sorry, New Year's Eve of 1998.
Oh,
And for me, so to me, there's the music obviously that I've listened to and memorized. It's in my DNA. But also, like I mentioned, that I studied Phish so much from the last time I saw them over the calendar year. There's so much stuff that's almost fetishized, like getting the mail order tickets that had
totally.
the subway trains, like the artwork, and it's
The
like in
best.
my DNA. I'm like, I could picture the tapes I had of those shows and the handwriting on the back for the set list on the J card. To me, that 98 New Year's run, just like I told you, solidified that this is the band for me. So
Yeah.
that's more what it's about, even more so than the music in a sense. I fast
98,
forwarded.
98 is just vibes too. Like
98
98
is
is such
underrated.
great vibes.
Yeah.
Underrated. I mean, it's hard because it's, sandwiched in between 2 incredible years. But yeah, it's so underrated. There's such unbelievable stuff in that year. Yeah.
So the next memory that came to me was December 4th, 2009. They played 3 shows that week at MSG. It was like a Thanksgiving run, like early winter run. They played a first tube that, if I remember correctly, closed the first set. And I had seats behind the stage that night at MSG. And if you've ever been behind the stage for a first tube, when Kuroda is just flashing the white lights on the whole crowd from the band's point of view, it rocked the garden almost like nothing I've ever felt before, arguably since. It's
Hell
kind of one
yeah.
of those, and I don't use a lot of acronyms when I type or text, but it's one of those, if you know, you know. The
Yeah,
12409 first tube.
I totally agree. And I also think that that is something that people should not be hesitant to try. Sitting behind the stage at MSG is a vibe. Like, if you
Yeah.
ever want to feel what it could feel like to be Fish, that's the place to do it because you see what they see and it is really tremendous. And also, the floor bounces there more than any other place in the
Yeah.
venue. So, if you want to feel that like lifting up from the ground, floor bouncing, MSG, above the subway vibes, you're going to get it back there. And it is super cool. You can actually see like the rail riders, you can see their faces. You can totally see what it must feel like to play if you're Fish at MSG. I
Yeah.
love it. I think it's an awesome spot. Wouldn't want to see every show there because you don't see the lights, but you do see the rig moving, which is cool. And yeah, I think it's definitely worth everybody doing once.
Agreed. I fast forwarded to the next year, New Year's 2010. It was my first New Year's show. And so that's also the year they did the Meat Stick New Year's Eve. And so the year before in Miami was when they did like Fishman was shot out of the cannon. It was like Sarah from Pittsburgh playing, what was it? Did you enjoy myself? Maybe or Fluffhead, I think it was. And so that was theatrical for sure. But Meat Stick brought it to a whole new level. Meat
Yeah.
Stick was like, okay, we are now pretty much showing you half of an act of a Broadway show on New Year's Eve. Like
Yeah.
we are really dumping a lot of effort, time, money, and performance aesthetic into what's pretty much the only thing you're going to see all year. Like it's the only time you're going to see it.
Yeah.
And it's like we're giving so much back to the fans. So the Meat Stick, and it was a good show besides, that's the Holy Ghost. Also, that New Year's Eve. So that blew my mind. A couple years later, December, it's going to be a trend now. These are all in December, obviously. December 30th, 2012, there's a version of Carini that I think opened the second set that really got dark and really got like people compared it to Metallica playing sometime, like almost like tribal drums.
Yeah.
Really amazing stuff. December 30th, 12/30/12. It also flows off the tongue very nicely, the date. the December 31st, 2013 Jump Truck set.
Classic.
Before Gamehenge, that was probably my favorite set to see because it just hit me emotionally. Like the band's New Year's gags always focus so much on time and time travel, and they really they created a time machine, basically, that brought us back to seeing them in Burlington in the mid or late 80s. That's
Yeah,
what they did.
absolutely. It's amazing. And as you're talking about these, I'm really thinking about how important MSG has been as far as the Phish aesthetic and artistic presentation.
Yeah,
I
and
think
their iconography.
if they didn't have a venue that they felt that they could work so closely with and that was in New York City, right, tied to Broadway, tied to so many of these performers, and have access to that, I think they would have been on a different place in terms of, their iconography, how they present, the level of presentation. I think about what they're doing at the Sphere. They're actually playing there right now as we're recording.
Mhm.
And I think so much about, risks they take and how much they put into their production and how important MSG has been to that. And definitely. And also want to second that Carini. It's in the HF Pod Mount Rushmore, one of the best top 4 Carinis of all time. Absolutely.
Yeah, deservedly.
Yeah.
But you don't need to hear it from me. Go back and listen to anyone listening. Go back and listen to that episode of HF Pod. All your Mount Rushmore episodes were so fun.
Thank you.
Again, New Year's Eve, a couple years later, 2015, but not the New Year's, although that was the Hourglass,
Super
Hourglass
cool.
year, which was super cool.
Yeah.
But
Was it
to
No
me,
Men? No Men in No Man's Land? Is that
that's what they played, but that's not my moment.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
highlight was when they played Twist, which was soon after that. And that year, 2015, this is going to be a little personal. I finalized my divorce that year. And 2015 was also the height of like bliss jamming. Like they were always
Yeah.
finding
Oh, yeah.
themselves in like major chord jamming that like felt amazing in the audience. So during this Twist, I almost had a vision that I was flying over the audience, being like pushed and propulsed by this jam, that they found themselves doing this amazing, positive, upbeat, major key riff during Twist. To me, it was the feeling. I was with two of my friends. My then girlfriend, now wife, was there, although we were very new in dating. So I was kind of like this kind of in between, but it was also New Year's Eve. So to me, it felt like, all right, this is a turnover.
Yeah.
It's the end of an era, like literally in my life, but in the calendar year too. So this twist just helped me kind of emotionally get pushed forward away from the life I was finished living and
Yeah, I
to
love
see a
that.
glimpse into the new one. So that one is up there. And for the next one, I just wrote The Baker's Dozen.
Yeah, it's the
That's too
baker's dozen.
much. Like,
There's just so much there. Yeah, we did an episode on HF Pod about that, and I remember the guys were like, "Yeah, we'll just pop on and talk about a couple like episodes, shows that we loved or jams." And then we ended up going through like every single show because it's just like there's so much in every show. But
it's
yes, I mean,
impossible.
and I think that also is a point that people still speak to. Like the other day, I was in a poetry class and a student, and I actually wrote a really funny poem. We were supposed to write a poem about using a tribal vernacular. And so, what is a community that you're in that has its own language? And so
Oh,
I wrote,
shit.
yeah, so I wrote a poem called Jam Band Enjambment. It's all just like basically kind of like our vernacular. And it was funny because I had to read it in class. And a couple of people were like, "Oh, what is this about?" And I was like, it's about the Phish world." And they were like, "Oh," someone was like, "Oh, do they still play?" And someone else said, "Yeah, they played like, all these shows in a row at Madison Square Garden." And I realized that that is a legitimizer for people outside of the world, our community that think that like I think the Baker's Dozen was, it was emotionally a huge moment for me. It was how I got back into Phish just because I would see like a show or two a year always, and I always stayed, in touch with the music, but I re-entered the community in a major way because of what happened at the Baker's Dozen and my experience going to the first night, the middle night, and the last night, and just realizing like how vibrant this community was and how invested the band still was in making new things and pushing themselves creatively. And it was so inspiring, and I'll always forever be grateful for the Baker's Dozen. And every time we're there in the summer, that's what I think about too.
And specific to this episode, you want to talk about Phish's history at Madison Square Garden. You can't mention it. You can't talk about Phish at Madison Square Garden without saying anything about the Baker's Dozen.
Yeah,
They're
you have
intrinsically
to.
intertwined.
I mean, that moment when they raised the banner at the end of the 13 nights,
Yeah.
I was actually behind the stage that night and I was kind of right behind Fishman. And I just remember feeling like, this band that the first time I saw, I was like 18 rows back in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the like DeVos Hall, seeing this silly band that was working so hard but didn't take itself so seriously, that I just completely fell in love with. And here they are, like having this residency the year I turned 40 in Madison Square Garden. Like it just felt very, it was emotional and it was incredible. And it was a really proud moment to be a Phish fan.
And finally, I had to say it, Gamehenge. I've already said it, but I'll say it again because every once in a while, once every few years, I see a show where I walk out and I say, do I even have to go back? Like, is there even
Yeah.
more that I can possibly see that can fill my cup this much? And Gamehenge was obviously one of those shows. And
Yeah.
I remember like almost like I walked my dog when I got home. It was like 2:15 in the morning. I took my dog out for a walk. Like he was sleeping. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't go to sleep. Like I just saw
Oh,
Gamehenge
yeah.
at Madison Square Garden, so let's go. Like I just got to walk around my neighborhood for a little bit. And I remember it was almost, I don't want to sound pretentious, but it was almost like existential after
Yeah.
seeing Gamehenge, like fully produced in the way that it was. Not just like a spontaneous decision from the stage, which previous Gamehenge versions have sounded, uh, with certain exceptions, but like I've seen everything Phish can do and that I've dreamed of. They granted my dream, that like a wish that I thought was dead and dormant. And it was over. I thought it was over. And
Yeah.
I was just and I obviously went back many times since, but when I think of Phish at MSG, that's going to be really hard to top. Really hard to
Yeah.
top.
Yeah. I think that will be really, really hard to top for everyone that was there. It's a fan service, like I mentioned before. It's a realization of, Trey's thesis from when he was in college. It's all these things coming together for the band, for the fans, and it's definitely one of the most special moments in their history. And it's funny, I don't usually go to New Year's Eve because I spend it with my family, but this year I'm like, maybe I should
Right? Who
because
knows
I
what you're gonna
think they're
miss?
gonna do something like I don't know. I have this dream that Phish will play like a one-song set. And I'm like, what if they did that on their 100th show? Like, I don't know. I'm just like, what if they do? They're clearly wanting to do something amazing because they're building it up so much starting in the summer. I mean, they're building it up massively with these numbering these shows in the summer. They could have easily waited and been like, we're in 97, 98, 99,
Right.
100. And clearly they're going to do something insane because also if you think about what 97, 98, 99 were like in terms of the years of Phish, like when I first saw those dates this summer, I was like, are they talking about the years of Phish, like 92, 93? And I was like,
And the video
Yeah.
was very hard on that.
yeah. And I was like, what if they did some sort of a nod to each year and, each night? And wouldn't that be sick? And imagining that, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should go this year. So we'll see. Maybe I can get a pass and go all 4 nights this year. We'll see.
Well, Megan, before we wrap this all up, I think we've covered it all. I think we've nailed it. Whatever else there is to talk about. Any last minute things that you wanted to say about Phish at MSG or these upcoming shows at MSG, whether it's any tips and tricks you thought of since you brought it up earlier, like other entrances, anything that came to mind being in New York City in the summer that you didn't get the opportunity?
Well, I'm sitting here thinking about this list that we just put together and realizing I'm, later this afternoon and tomorrow, I'm going to think of a million other shows or jams that I wish we'd talked about because it's Phish at Madison Square Garden. I mean, there's been 91 shows there. There's just so much history there and so many incredible moments that everybody shared. But no, I'm just feeling really grateful that Phish is going to play a bunch there this year. We're really lucky in New York. We get to see a lot of music, and when Phish comes, it's always really special, but it's really nice when we get a whole bunch and we don't have to travel a lot. And I'm just really excited. I'm excited to see lots of friends who come to New York, and I hope that people really come and enjoy the city and take advantage of everything we have to offer and how hard we work to keep this place going, even though it's an intense place. And I'm excited. This was really nice and nostalgic and fun for me to sit in with you and think about what this show or this venue, has meant to me. So thanks.
That's it for today's episode, our preview for Phish at Madison Square Garden this coming summer. I'd like to thank Megan for joining me today, Phish.in for the many recordings used in today's episode, Phish.net for all of the information we need, and of course the Mockingbird Foundation for everything they do to support children's music education in schools. If you enjoy Attendance Bias, please support the podcast. You can visit www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donating anything you can. You can follow Attendance Bias on social media, and you can leave a rating and a review of the show wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week on Attendance Bias.